Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hey, I might have been on. I don't even know. Maybe I'm now. There we go. Hey, okay. So, you know what the deal is. Turn off your phone. Turn off your phone. Please, turn off your phone. We hate phones. Okay. Alabama Bicentennial Brown Bag Lecture continues on. Again, it's going to be about the 200th year of Alabama. And that will be this week, 11:45 to 2 p.m. at Pebble Hill. Lunch begins at 11:45, so you can bring your lunch to Pebble Hill, not here. And that will be the story of Alabama in 14 Foods by Emily Blujois, I guess. Don't know. Author of The Story of Alabama in 14 Foods. Well, that makes sense. So please, and also books will be available for sale there. So it sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like you'll be able to eat. Then we have October 7th through 11th, we have Photography Week. So you are supposed to shave, wear your pearls. I don't usually like to wear mine, and unless it's a formal occasion. And town clothes, and photographers will be coming around to classes to take photos. That will probably limit the amount of people that attend class, I'm sure. So, yeah, I shouldn't have read that one. New member luncheon. We have any new members here today? I neglected to mention that. Any new members? All right, forget about the lunch. All right, Ollie Fall Showcase, hosted by the membership and social committees. That's Thursday, October 10th from 3 to 5 at Sunny Slope. Join us for food, fun, and entertainment. Ollie members will bring a side dish, enough for 6 to 8 people. Ollie will provide the main dish, desserts, and beverages. RSVP to Ollie at auburn.edu or call Shawnee. Well, you know, yeah, be brave. It's not that bad. You know, I think about the unification of Germany. And when I think about the unification of Germany, it always brings up these two provinces that lie between Germany and France that are called Alsace-Lorraine. And they are west of the Rhine River, and they are, I guess the proper thing to say is they're generally disputed as to who should be in control of these two pieces of property. And in the city of Strasbourg, some of you may have been there, it's got a lovely cathedral. It's a street, and this street in 1870 was known as Rue de Napoleon. And then, after 1870, it was known as Rue de Kaiser. Well, after 1918, it was known as Rue de la République. After 1940, it was named Rue de Hitler. And today, after 1945, it became Rue de Gaulle. I have a tough time doing de Gaulle because he's a lot taller than I am, so and a lot ruder. But anyway, if you think about it, if you had the concession that made street signs in this town, you would have made a good profit. So you can see that change in that particular town is inevitable. But one thing that never changes is the quality of the lectures of Joseph Kicklighter.
Thank you. Boy. Always. You just never know until it's ending. Thank you, Frank. Thank you. And thank you all for coming back. I was a little nervous, but I appreciate your being here as we continue this discussion. We are talking about the great changes in Europe before World War I. And what people fail to appreciate sometimes is that during that pre-war period, as we saw last time, and we'll now see again, there's as much change as then we will see as of 1918, 1919. It is truly transformative for those who lived through it, let me tell you, not the least of whom would have been the Russians. And that's where we left off last time, the 1905 revolution, and you'll remember their semi-liberal concessions, there being the Tsar and his associates, of a kind of Western liberal tradition. It did not amount to a lot because, after all, World War I was about to begin. So we've got, what, 11 years? And for most of us, that's a pretty short time. So let's say they were just beginning to play liberalism before the war started. And as all of us know, USSR folks, liberalism is kind of going to disappear as a result of what's coming next in Russian history. That said, Russia, or the Russian Empire, like the Ottoman Empire, was falling apart at this particular time, which is an interesting point to be at, considering both are going to be participants in World War I, and if you would like, casualties of their old traditions, because they are not going to be the same, are they? Russia will become the USSR, and as we saw last time, the Ottoman Empire is going to develop in lots of ways, including, of course, the modern-day Republic of Turkey. Would I call it an ally of the United States? Sort of, as long as those checks keep coming. But let's just assume that their membership in NATO is up to date, and so we can count on them for something. Otherwise, we do want to be aware as we now move on that change is not limited to the Ottoman Empire and the Russians, but big changes for Austria. Now, many of you have been to Austria. Beautiful country, isn't it? And many of you remember in our youth when you saw The Sound of Music. Oh, and Julie Andrews and all the rest. Well, we'll forego that and we'll thank the Habsburgs and the long history of what had been a great empire. Notice verb tense. It's all memory, the way we were, because it's like the old gray mare. Yes, it has a wonderful history, and friends, in this very room, if I call out the name Charles V, you get tingles because you think about the great Habsburg ruler, you know, and you begin to think of that era. Well, I'm not here to talk about that, so get over it. This is the later time. These are bad times. I mean, if I had been a Habsburg at this particular time, and you think of all of the troubles the Habsburgs faced, I don't to the elderly emperor and his own personal troubles. Just to note, his wife is assassinated by anarchists. His heir committed suicide with his girlfriend. I mean, on and on it goes. But that's, I guess you could say, personal. There are, of course, issues with maintaining that empire. And I thought this map, while it's very detailed, it gives you a sense of, while the Habsburgs or as we used to call them, the German Habsburgs, as opposed to, or Imperial Habsburgs, as opposed to, remember the Spanish Habsburgs from way back when? Yeah. But they're not part of our story. They're long gone. Long gone. Let's just concentrate now on what we've got left. And I mean, they were territories that sort of collected the way some of us collect things and never throw it out, you know, and that's a problem. Well, sometimes that's a problem for the Habsburgs. If you look at all these areas, and what do they have in common? They're ruled by a Habsburg. And if your children happen to be, well, Hungarian or Croatian or Transylvanian, you have to say, and going to school, you say, you're going to be taking German 101. Yeah, yeah. And they say, but why can't we learn our language? I mean, it's rough. Apparently, by this period, 1914, on and on of keeping these people loyal, because all they're supposed to be loyal to is they love the Habsburg monarchy. Well, we don't get any respect. Well, that's not altogether true. Not if you're a Hungarian. Yes, this was a very interesting episode in Austrian history. And I don't think the Austrians wanted to do it, who would? But the Hungarians say, look, we're big, we're bad, and we've accepted a position of number 2. And we're sick and tired of it. And we want this place to be Austria-Hungary. We want our kids to take Hungarian 101, 102. We want everything to be in Hungarian. And these Habsburgs, while probably not happy about it, said, okay, now do you want our Slavic friends? Would you like for them to have some rights? No, they're losers. But we want it to be Austria-Hungary, Emperor of Austria and King of Hungary. And that in German, help me, Helga, it's Ausgleich, I think.
Very good. Ausgleich.
Gleich, Ausgleich. I got it from the master. So Ausgleich, and it's sort of like combination or something of the sort. In other words, when you go to Budapest, you are Hungarian king. And he would go in there and say, hey, I'm Austrian emperor. Nine. You speak Hungarian when you're here. Yeah. That would be a breach of etiquette. You don't hurt folks' feelings. Because Hungarians, we're proud, and we're the big H, we're Hungary. So, yeah, it's going to be Austria-Hungary, and you say, how long? Not long. About 1918 will do nicely, thank you, because it's all over. But for this period, I think it's right interesting. Because they got, and you say, well, I guess everybody's so excited about it's Hungary Day, it's Hungary. Well, I don't think if you're a Slav, you're getting excited about it. Because you think the Hungarians are going to say, we love you, little Slavs, and we want to be your friend. No, you are below us. We're up and you're down. It's an interesting situation, particularly because there will be, as we know, a variety of problems. As we're about to see, the Austrians get kicked out of Italy. They had a long run among Italians, but that territory is lost. And they take territories in the south. You'll see Bosnia, which has a ring for those of us who remember the 1990s, as I'm sure you do. And you will be aware, of course, you say, why would they want the Bosnian? I think we call it in swimming pool talk, keep away. You are basically not wanting other people to have it. You see the territory down south called Serbia? Yeah. So they're very concerned about the Slavs getting together and getting other Slavs excited. So but we'll take it and you can't have it. Now do something about it. Well, that can be right dangerous, but anyway, Bohemia, Moravia, all those territories, they're all together and they have issues. They have, I definitely think it's a difficult situation. They needed a lot of counseling, as we would say today, in those years before World War I. And it had gotten worse, not better. You understand that too. It's not like, oh, and it seemed like it was so great. No, it wasn't. Austria-Hungary was a mess. But it is also a truth that other people at least seemed happy, and of course one of them is a place near and dear to many hearts there in this room, I'm sure, Italy. So much to love in Italy, not just in the north. You want to go to Rome, maybe hang out with the Pope, maybe go to Naples, all the interesting places you can go. I'm not getting a commission from the Chamber of Commerce. I'm just saying that there are a lot of interests. And of course, let's face it, you can go to New York City, in one of my favorite places, the public library, and go around the corner, and you will see a big old statue of the hero of Italians. Because let's face it, there are a lot of them in this country. I'm speaking not him, not Cavour, he's just a politician, but Garibaldi. The story of how Italy became a nation is in part the story of colorful heroes like Garibaldi who excited people. Because as I talked to some of you about Dante and all of the issues involving the separate states, it goes way, way back. And these kind of characters, Garibaldi had an exciting life. You know, he lived in South America for a while. He was quite a revolutionary, had a companion, and just did a lot of interesting things. But always his dream was to unite all the Italians. And you say, oh, well, that's so beautiful. Well, you're very romantic, and good for you. I love romantics. But you understand there's a lot of practicality about creating a nation state. Well, Garibaldi was not worried about that. Again, we leave that to politicians. He was interested in stirring people up, and you create a lot of enemies like that. I mean, the Austrians, they had lands, Venice, lands like that. Well, shoot, they didn't want to give up their relationship with the Austrians, and the Austrians wanted to keep it. But it didn't last. They eventually eliminated the Austrians. They eliminated the separate kings. Like some of you that have been with me a long time will even remember the Kingdom of Two Sicilies. And that Kingdom of Two Sicilies way down south, shoot, do you think they wanted to say, we're going to give you the golden parachute so we can create an Italy and hand them a flag and a piece? I think not. They didn't like it one little bit. People get hurt, their feelings, even with a nice pension, dental plan. The point is, of course, so often you're going to get in trouble because you have these vested interests. And nobody has more vested interests than the one we call the Pope. He's real vested. wouldn't you say, since St. Peter. The idea of the papal states then, come on in, we're so glad, you're Italian, I'm Italian, buongiorno. It's not going to be happy. This long period of creating will take involvement on the side of these individuals. It will take the government of King Victor Emmanuel, was his name, of the kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia. See it way up north, way up northwest in Turin, way up there. I think it's a big industrial area now. And that is going to become the area of the king, who will unite that territory. Or rather, his chief minister, a great politician by the name of Cavour. And you say, well, he doesn't get a statue there around the New York Public Library. What about his statue? Sorry, he had the glory of having been the manipulator. That's what they do. And he was able to oversee, shall we call it, the coronation of Victor Emmanuel II as King of Italy, formerly King of Piedmont, Sardinia. And I'm sure it was a nice ceremony, but then Victor Emmanuel got a little document in the mail. And we don't get so many documents anymore. I mean, it's not so much at the post office, but this, we used to, you would see that letter from the IRA and you would say, oh, I bet this is hateful. You know, this could hurt my feelings. I don't think I'll open it. This was a letter marked Rome Post Office. And you say, oh, he's sending me love. It's a love letter from the Pope. And it wasn't. It was a letter, damn you. Yes. And he said, how would you feel if you're a nice Catholic king and you got a letter like that? Would that not hurt your feelings? Yeah. He did, though. Pius IX was the Pope of the day. He'd once been a liberal, but he got over it. And he had an attack of it. And then he said, oh, this is just getting way out of hand. But they were trying to take over Rome, and they did. This Italian government, and that hurts the Pope's feelings. And he says, you're damned, buddy. You better say you're sorry. Well, that happened when Victor Emmanuel was on his deathbed, and he said, well, I guess I'm sorry. So that he was allowed to receive the sacrament, which I think is nice, 1878. So, just you're aware that the monarchy ended after World War II. There was some unpleasantness, and so that was the end of that. But I know that's one way to put it. But the point is that the monarchy did help unite Italy. Not that that means that, as you know, nationalism can be very tricky. And it doesn't necessarily mean that Italy is going to be a major power. But it means that it wants to be a major power. It's always like, oh, I'm going to grow into this. But it never quite makes it. It wants to. As the Iron Chancellor, Otto von Bismarck, said, the Italians have such a huge appetite, but such a small stomach. In other words, they can't take much in. And so they're very ambitious, as we are going to see. And they get their feelings hurt a lot. You know, they get sensitive because sometimes the big countries don't let us come to their meetings, or they don't treat us with the respect we feel we should get. We're the big eye, man. We're Italy, you know. Yeah, so yes, there is some hurt, but Italy's there with an excommunicated king, I might add, which I just think is wild, and various areas, and you understand that a lot of these people are probably saying to themselves, well, we're kind of Italian, but we're really from Florence. Or we're, you know, there's still that attitude, I think for a long time, if ever the difference. The North and South, woo, those are folks that really know they're different, and they are. And they're very, very conscious of those differences. But the idea of Italy is such a major one for the history of 19th century Europe. And as I've pointed out to you before, the idea of Italy trying to play hardball with the other powers is going to be a very interesting one as we move on. Here we have, I love this painting. When I saw it, I just said, I've got to show this to the class. Garibaldi meets Victor Emmanuel. Because Garibaldi, being such a romantic, he doesn't want to get down, kiss the cheeks of a king or something like that and say, oh, your majesty, oh, your ring is so nice, just let me put my big old lips on it. No, no indeedy doody. I mean, no romantic would be into that. He's into Italy. But if it will help our dream of Italy, we'll ride out on our horses, Black Beauty meets Flicka, and there we are, and then we can meet each other. And I'm thinking, I wonder what Victor Emmanuel's probably saying this loud. Oh, how are you? Buongiorno. But you know, there are a lot of things that we don't say sometimes in these kinds of encounters. But an interesting meeting. And it was a very, those of you who studied Italian unification will know that Garibaldi had to have a big swallow because this is not the way he had planned for it to turn out. I mean, he created Italy, but he didn't want some king. Ugh. I mean, King Schming, I mean, that just wasn't what he really was into. But hey, it created Italy, and that's what he wanted. Now, Germany, the Second Reich. People often say, but what about the First Reich? Well, you may have been here with me when we did the Ottos, the great 10th century kings. Technically, who became Holy Roman emperors. And I think if you want to do the proper interpretation, they say that this would be the Second Reich. This is a great period, a period which doesn't last that long, but after all, World War I was coming. They didn't know that. More or less, they owed it to the fact that Bismarck ran the government. I believe he came into power in 1862, 1863. The story is an interesting one. I guess if I were doing a course on modern German history, we'd go into detail. But let's just say that Bismarck convinced the Prussian king, William I, that unless Prussia stood up over Austria and the traditional domination of the French, that Germans would never enjoy the sort of position that they deserve to have in Europe. So, as they always say, you have to break the eggs to get the omelet. Austria and France both lost wars to Prussia, a government led by Otto von Bismarck. And winning those wars, the other German states, of which there were many, the map will show you, and I'm sure Helga could name quite a few. There were, you see Bavaria, well, everybody knows that, or Hanover, Mecklenburg. You can see the biggies in terms of the German states. But getting them all together must have been quite difficult. You have to sort of like seeing is believing, because, you know, the Germans this, the Germans that. I don't know if that's really true. You go up north and you see, oh, Lutherans here, Lutherans there. You go south, lots and lots of Catholics. I mean, the religious differences are, or were, very pronounced. So creating that one German people is just kind of like creating that one Italian people. They've got some serious differences among them. But when it's victory on the field, that seems to work better. Bismarck used to say, in fact, that victories are created not by votes and discussions, but by blood and iron, to use his phrase. If that is true, then war was the answer. Not wars like on and on and on wars, but we would almost say quick wars. And those are the kind that Bismarck preferred. He was even involved, along with Austria, in a war against, now you're not going to believe this, Denmark. You could say, who would want to hurt the Danes? Well, it was different back then, and theories differ as to why there was a war. But you see that territory up there, Schleswig-Holstein? It was a way for the Austrians and the Prussians to take all of it. And they took it and said, well, we'll take care of it together. And you know what happened? They had an argument. And Prussia said, it's time for you to leave. We hate you. And so, I know. If you want to believe Bismarck's memoirs, all of this was planned and set up. He said so in his autobiography while he was pouting at home after he lost his job. If it's true, or whether it's true or not, we'll never know. But wars followed rapidly, one after another, until the war with France. And this was a war which would excite both French and Prussians, read Germans, for many, many years to come. The Franco-Prussian War. Napoleon III decided he would enjoy moving to London on a permanent vacation, as we have seen before. That was the end of that. And of course, we all remember this scene. I'd love to know who painted that. Perhaps it was painted by an artist present. But somehow, Bismarck decided this would be a perfect scene. Doing it there at the palace of what famous German monarch? Louis XIV of France. I think it's called rubbing it in. I don't know. And you say, there's William I up there. He looks fabulous. Got his nicest uniform on. And all of the other German rulers are there. And I guess they all came from their various palaces, and their states. Come on over to France. They're already defeated. Now, I don't imagine any French were there for the celebrations. I think they probably had to miss some of the party, just maybe some of the servants. And there, in the white outfit with the yellow ribbon, you know who that is? That's the big B. That's Otto von Bismarck. And I always think of a stage-door mother. Ballet or whatever it is, watching at the recital and say, "Now you stand there pretty, you look really cute, you're so cute." Because all of this was Bismarck. Don't blow it. Just stand there and look very imperial. Because you're now a German emperor. We don't call him Emperor of Germany. German emperor, isn't that? It's kind of interesting. German emperor. January of 1871, France has been defeated. Oh, we have plans for France. Don't you worry about that. There will be a fee. We have what's called an occupation fee. That fee is charged because we're occupying you, and it's expensive to occupy countries. So we'll need a few francs here, a few francs there, cha-ching. Yeah. German armies will occupy France. And I mean, you say, gosh, did the French cooperate? Well, I think there were some hurt feelings. Let me just put it that way. Because they were trying to start out, with a new government that we mentioned before, the late unpleasant Third Republic until 1940. And they have to deal with this. Oh, I don't think they stuck around. They got him crowned, then packs up their pretty things and then goes on home, yeah. I mean, you just have to go to Germany. It's not that far. So, but they've had their moment. Yeah. This is really big. Right there in France. They don't do it in Berlin or Frankfurt or anything like that. We're doing it right there at Versailles. Take that, loser. To hurt folks, they want to show them. You're losers. Remember, they haven't gotten over Napoleon. Napoleon hurt our feelings, so take that. We hate you. I mean, folks get, worked up. And thanks to Frank, we already know about those lands. It is absolutely fascinating if you get into the history of Alsace-Lorraine. And I don't know how to compare it to territories that I suppose you have people there who can speak or who are bilingual. They know their German and French, and they would have a Lowenbrow with the best of them and the whole thing. I mean, but one senses they have that French national feeling. And certainly now, I'm thinking at that time it could waver. I don't think the French appreciated it, and it will become, I would say, a very sore subject for the French. They considered Alsace-Lorraine theirs, part of their world. It's not, however, that there were not German ethnics who lived there. So it's kind of like a very, very difficult situation. The French motto was, never mention it, but never forget it. So you say, so we're not going to have a apple bobbing party with the Germans this year. No, I think the Franco-German love feast is not going to happen. But we don't talk about it with them. Maybe we can have a hate Germany party on ourselves. But nobody from Germany is invited. We hate you. You took our Alsace-Lorraine. But we go out and say, oh, hi, Heidi and Frida. You know, that kind of thing. You don't, in other words, but you don't talk about it with them like, someday, though, we're getting them back, and you'll be sorry. All of this, 1871, 1914. It's not that long. I just love this. This came from an American humor magazine in 1898 called Puck. It's not in print now, so don't rush out and try to get a copy. There are no subscriptions, sorry. But look at that. They're Germany. Of course, Germany, look at that mustache. And there's Alsace-Lorraine. And they are just as, they're so pretty and sad. See, they've got little German handcuffs. And look at the French. See, French say, oh, I love you, amour, amour. And you see, he wants his fair maidens back, but he can't have them. I know, sad. But that is more or less where it was. And you know, if the French had gone in their nicest way, you know, breastfeeding, and said, hey, could we have back Alsace-Lorraine, pretty please? You know what the answer would be. Nine! I mean, they're not going to get them back. So, does that mean war is the answer? Oh, I'm thinking, we don't know when, but at some point, you know when, but they didn't know when. It's so interesting, though, isn't it, that that particular issue, I'm not saying it caused World War I, but I am saying it certainly didn't make, if you want to have an ecumenical Franco-German get-together, and no. It's bad. Japan, and you're asking yourselves, and I think, in many ways rightly, why is he bringing up Japan? Because this is the very period that Japan gets to play in the Big Shots Club. That's right. Just as we're getting to World War I, you say, well, why couldn't they be a big shot before? Well, remember, they were isolated until a time that we all learned when we learned our American presidents. We learned the administration of Millard Fillmore. Not one of your more famous presidents, but he was right in there, a Whig, you'll recall. And during that period, Commodore Perry stopped by, and the rest is Japanese history, is it not? The opening of Japan by the Americans said to the Japanese leadership, you better open up and trade with us. And Japan said, okay, we'll do it, but we're going to do it our way. And as we do it, we will become a major power. And they did it. And they did it in a very quick period of time. They went through the Industrial Revolution. The Japanese sent out people to Prussia, the United States, Paris, London, to pick up everything they could about going Western. It's an incredible story of how Japan gained that status. And it's called, as we would, I guess, when we study the Turks. It's studying, we are going to be Turks inside and out, but we know how to play the Western lines, and we'll do it. And that's what the Japanese will do. Now, some unpleasantness comes about. I think the Industrial Revolution could be right unpleasant. I know it's necessary, but I imagine a country that's largely agricultural to go through the Industrial Revolution couldn't have been fun and games, but that was second half of the 19th century, and you say they did that fast? I'm saying that. It is amazing to me that they did that. Now, some people got hurt along the way. Among them, their neighbors of China. The Chinese and the Japanese fought quite a bit, ending in Japanese victory. And the Japanese, as many of you know, held Korea for quite a long time. In addition to that, the Russians got in the way, and that's part of our story. I say got in the way. They got in the way of Japanese ambitions in China, Manchuria. That's exactly right. You can see there on the map. This Russo-Japanese War brings back for me so many great memories. I was not at the war, but I went to New Hampshire. Yes, I did. I am all about that Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Cannot get enough. Well, I mean, it's pretty and it's nice and all that, but I am more interested in what happened while Theodore Roosevelt was president. So I'm in a special, sad, and odd category of tourists. This is an interesting photograph that I always use to illustrate Japanese, I guess, bourgeois people. And you say, but yes, they are wearing Western outfits. Those are Japanese military officers and their wives. And you say, why are they dressed as Westerners? Because the Japanese society and government had made their minds up that this was the best way for them to be a major power. When they fought the Russians in the early 20th century, they took, of course, a major chance. What if they had lost? Well, they didn't. In fact, they won so handily. Here it is. Oh, my postcard. Imagine if I could have been there having a good time at Portsmouth. Wish you were here. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah, so I mean, I could not get enough of all this. Get a T-shirt and all that, and all the Portsmouth stuff. The idea, though, is that Theodore Roosevelt, with his strong ideas of America's role in the world, I would say, decided the war had gone on long enough. I don't know how he persuaded them. Perhaps the Russians were getting tired of being battered, and they had good reasons. It was a completely devastating war for Russia. And it would lead, as I've said before, to the revolution of 1905 in Russia. I always look at those pictures of Kent Witta and Rosen and think, Lord, I would hate to have been them. And you know, you go to all the nice parties after they sign the treaty and say, Dos Vitania and Sayonara and all that. And then you're headed back for St. Petersburg, and you know what you're thinking? I'm going to talk ugly. There'll be hell to pay. Yeah? There's going to be trouble. And indeed, this particular Treaty of Portsmouth, which acknowledged the Japanese victory, was a stop to the war. And for Theodore Roosevelt, who was, they say, very concerned about the yellow peril, as he called it. Saw this as stopping the advance of Asians, at least for a time. Now, what does this mean for us, though? Well, it means we already know that Russia's got more and more problems. This is just to illustrate it. And as far as Japan's concerned, they have joined the big players. But there's an interesting thing about Japan, at least to me. Japan has no interest in, well, how are things in Belgium? What about The Hague in the Netherlands? And the answer is always like, I hope it's good, because I don't care. Yeah. We tend to Asia, and y'all can do what you want to do in Europe. But you know that the British, the French, the Americans, the Dutch, keep on naming them, are all interested in Asia. So that's going to be a very interesting issue. So when we talk after World War I, the Japanese, oh, you want to talk about China? Let's sit down and have a meeting about China. Oh, y'all are going to talk about Belgium? Look, we'll see y'all later, okay? You know, that kind of thing. It's like, well, don't y'all want to come to the meeting? We're going to have some really good refreshments. No, it's not our issue. We're Asian all the way. So, yeah, I just find that very interesting. So, but they are a major player. They spend a lot of time there, you know, and their representatives there in Paris during the negotiations after World War I. You say, were they in any of the major battles? No. They took over some China interests of the Germans in Asia, and then otherwise they said, well, good luck to y'all. But they still got to have a role. They got to participate in the negotiations. There they are. I guess you say, but what about Millard Fillmore? You didn't put him up. No, I think we'll stick to these two. But everybody, you know, if you were to go out in the streets tonight and say, do you recognize these? Everybody would know who Theodore Roosevelt, and they might not know William Howard Taft, but they would know Woodrow Wilson, wouldn't they? Don't you think? Yeah, of course. Okay, I feel better. You make me feel a lot better about the knowledge of American history in this country. You feel like I could get a fairly high rating. For me, I'm calling them first imperial presence, and you can disagree because you might think of Taft in the Philippines, or maybe you think of William McKinley and the Spanish-American War. Maybe I won't debate this right now. Let me just note that I feel like these two, it's interesting they both won the Nobel Peace Prize. If you're into any kind of Oslo interests, that is kind of interesting because I'm going to go back to Nobel Prizes quite a bit in this class. And I just want you to be aware that they do have their interests, even though we think of them in many ways as being domestically inclined presidents. And we'll take a short break now, very short, and then we will resume. Thank you.